Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Let's see if this voice goes through well enough. Hopefully people can hear this. Let me know in the chat. Starting up the stream has not been easy, but hey. Okay, good to hear. Great. Thanks, local hoster. Yeah, there we go. Great. The stream will start in about 8 minutes, so if you're catching this on YouTube on a rerun, you may want to jump ahead about 8 minutes from this point. Sorry about that, but until I get a better hold on exactly how to time these events on YouTube and a number of other important details, there will be this kind of lead-in time to everyone listening in. So sorry about that. And I'm glad to hear that the audio out is less tinny. This just confirms my theory that the onboard sound card in this Asus Gaming 571 whatever is a piece of crap, which is kind of surprising to me because, look, I get that it is the one place you can cut a significant corner, but man, like this is an Asus gaming laptop. It is their high-end model. You would think that sparing $5, maybe not $5, let's say $50 on a really, really bad low-end sound card would be silly. I don't know. It's ridiculous to me that the sound card in this thing is so poor. But what are you gonna do? Anyway, I will turn the mic off for now, but soon we will start the show in about 7 minutes. 2 minutes till showtime. There we go. It seems to be all coming together. Welcome, except for me doing a very lazy intro there. Welcome one and all to tonight's show. This is PlanMixPlay with PMPVsFutures, and if you are on the YouTube stream, which will hopefully be a staple thing, you should be seeing some sort of cool intro just having finished off there. And I've done nothing to it since last show, except hopefully you can now tell that the audio coming through on the video stream is a whole lot better than it used to be. And as I suspected, it is the primary output on this laptop, which is just garbage. And I don't know if it's a hardware issue or if it's sound software issue. All I can say is that I've never had great bass output, or sorry, bass. Even though it's spelled bass, never had great bass output from the main sound cards. Instead, I'm letting most of the output go through my new Logitech headset, which I presume is software driven, and that seems to be going great. So great, but enough of the technical. Oh, excuse me. Enough of the technical details. Welcome along. This is the Sunday night show, PMPVsFutures, and I was hoping to get some stuff working for the night show, but that just ended up not panning out. I'm sorry for that. And also, you'll notice a few other weird things, such as that name show start going on. Anyway, I will, I can see the local hoster has already diligently posted the YouTube stream in case you guys want to see the visuals to go with the show, and if you just want the audio experience, hey, that is cool too. I am going to let Morty take it away. The first request of the evening by Raspor. And he wanted some, well, first of all, let's kill the bed there. And he wanted a bit of Morty Tristesse with Robots Have Depressions 2 mix. And I thought that was a pretty good intro tune, so take it away with Morty. Morty with Tristesse. Robots Have Depressions 2 mix requested by Raspor. So thank you very much, Raspor, for requesting that. First request of the evening. As I mentioned before, we do have a visual stream to go along with the show these days. So if you're so inclined, there is a link occasionally posted on EFNet. And you can also join us on EFNet, which is an intranet relay chat server. And if you don't know what any of that means, I advise you to Google IRC, the acronym, and look up how to get a client and how to join and all that jizz. I mean jazz, of course. Because I just can't, lay down the line here. Anyway, a lot of people are joining us in the chat. We have Wakani, Maltus, local hoster, was there before. I saw LP Chip, Raspor as well, I believe, and Woopag. Just posting the live visuals link again, in case anyone wants to listen in and see. So no more listening in, also watching it. In addition, Maltus, though, is mentioning, oh, hi, vegan, that there is some crackling on the stream. All I can say is that sucks. If you have issues with the YouTube stream, just switch over to Slay Radio. And if bandwidth is not an issue, you can get the audio on the Slay Radio stream and then watch the visuals via the YouTube. That's kind of up to you, however you want to roll. I'm not going to judge. Heck, I am very happy that I'm on a connection where there is no bandwidth cap, but not everyone can be so fortunate. Although what I've seen and heard from how the US is going, it seems that unlimited data is making a comeback. For me, it should be a utility. It's crazy. Anyway. And already I'm behind. Yeah, so the YouTube link really should be in the topic, but I'm having a few problems getting opt, so I can't put it up there. Anyway, I have a few topics for tonight, but I thought, why don't we instead just take it away with the next request? And we're already getting to the end of the list. Not too many requests this morning. LP Chip had two things, but I'm going to take the second one where he writes, "Hi Gazoo, I'd love to hear some Comic Bakery DJ's Choice 10Q. I'm not sure is that a joke on 10.4, or does 10Q mean something else? In any case, I've picked up a classic for you, which is Instant Remedy's version of Comic Bakery, because, yeah, I think they did a terrific job putting that together. So hopefully that will be good enough for you, LP Chip." Instant Remedy with Comic Bakery. Man, that I kind of wish I had the date on when that song came out, when the remix was, because it's got to be a heck of a long time ago. Man, what? I hope you guys have had a good weekend. I've had how should I say, one with lots of content in it, lots to do, lots to take care of. So you might notice that I sound a little bit, like I said, there's been a lot to do, but I do have this script ready. I have a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about, so and the reason I've actually entitled tonight's show PMPVsFutures is because now that the visuals are finally kind of running, and man, I'm kind of upset that I didn't get just one step closer, because they're hacky as well as something that's very hacky. It's kind of terrible. In fact, I'm surprised that it's holding together, and the only reason I chose to once again run this terrible creaky version is because I felt, well, we've stepped up to this level, we can't really go down again. So as much as I wanted the newer version ready and raring to go, it just didn't come together, and there were just as I thought. So when I was trying to get things ready last weekend, I knew, look, this would introduce enough changes that there will be some weird stuff happening. And sure enough, as soon as I got to work during this week on getting rid of most of the ugly hacks and kind of fixing things up and making them much easier to use, sure enough, a lot of stuff, or a few things start breaking here and there. And the most recent one is unfortunately something that's pretty deeply embedded in the graphical user interface library that sends events around and does a bunch of stuff. And this recent one I've kind of looked at and blinked and tried to debug a bit, and it just wasn't getting any clearer. So I am going to have to set some serious time aside for that this coming week and see if I can't dig deep enough and figure out what exactly is going on. And it's frustrating because it's the good news is once I fix it, it'll likely be fixed for good, and it's not an issue to reoccur, but it is a deeper code problem, which is annoying. And no, local hoster said he thought I meant futures as in the programming sense. No, not really. It's not the C++ 11 concept futures, which is pretty cool. I mean, I do mean programming, but what I actually mean is the future of the show. But given that I now inadvertently, in order to talk about the content of upcoming shows, have talked a lot already, why don't we save the topics till after this next song? And yes, let's see. Was it, I think, Newton from Acliff who's requesting... No, sorry, I don't know why I want to call Craig Newton, because it's Craig from Newton Acliff, not Newton from Craig Acliff. Anyway, Craig writes in and says, Johan Andersson Outrun, and Johan Andersson, as I can tell by RKO, has made two versions of Outrun, a magical sound shower, which is my personal favorite, but also a splash wave version. And the thing is, the splash wave has a giant happy red smiley, whereas the musical sound shower kind of has a middling yellow one. That being the case, I think we should go with splash wave and see what he's done to it. So without further ado, for you, Craig of Newton Acliff, here is Johan Andersson with Outrun Splash Wave Surf Mix. Johan Andersson there with his rendition of Splash Wave from Outrun. And if you don't recall, this is one of the 3 songs that you could pick when you play Outrun. There's Magical Sound Shower, there's Splash Wave, and there's... and this is where I really should know what the 3rd song is, but if we do... Mr. Google, he can certainly help. Splash Wave, Magical Sound Shower, and Passing Breeze, of course. By far, Magical Sound Shower is my favorite, but I can tell you that it's a Yu Suzuki composition, and man, that guy, he makes some pretty awesome music, and a fantastic rendition of that by Johan Andersson. Anyway, before I talk too much about all this other stuff, let's get back to talking about the futures, goals, and plans of the show, because that's what that's the whole key of the name PMP Futures. And this week, in addition to seeing if I couldn't squeeze in a much more clean, non-hacky version of PlanMixPlay, I've spent some time working on the website, specifically trying to prep for this now regular video stream that's going to be going with the show to tie it all in. And why have I been doing that? Is building websites fun to me? Nah, I think it's okay, but if I could hand off the reins 100% and fully trust that what I needed to get done was getting done, and probably also pay less than what I'd probably have to pay in order to get that way, I would. And it all comes down to exposure. Exposure is half the key to any good show. And I have hopefully said this multiple times before, and if not, shame on me. But Slay Radio is a excellent place. It is a great platform. And I am endlessly thankful to Slaygon for giving me the slot that I have to play with. And he's very gracious whenever I try to offer up some other help or support. His default response is always like, nah, the show you're doing is enough. And make no mistake, like, he and Boz and everyone else who's kind of the core behind Slay Radio has made a significant time/money investment into keeping things going. And that cannot be understated, in my opinion. But anyway, moving on. I don't think I've made any secret of the fact that I'm interested in growing the show. And don't get me wrong, I realize that this C64 business is at best on a minor comeback wave. It just won't ever regain the tremendous amount of popularity it had back in the day. But that being said, I am certain that there are hundreds, probably even thousands of people out there who would like to listen to more C64 shows on Slay Radio, but just have no idea that this thing exists and kind of need to be poked in the right place, as it were, which actually sounds a bit creepy. But I hope you know what I'm getting at, and this is where it all loops back to the website that I've been doing, as opposed to just solely working on PlanMixPlay. And nearly every endeavor that it tries to engage others, be it art that seeks eyes and ears, maybe even mouth, tools that beg for hands, or maybe even minds, they're always two parts of the whole, and one thing is seeking exposure, and the other thing is the art, the tool, the food, the blog, the whatever. Those are the two parts, and I'm going to dig a bit more into that, but first, another request, and this time, it is Maltus. Maltus, he had two, and I've picked the first one. He says, how about some Tetris in the Air by Keys to Imagination? I'm pretty sure we played this, if not last show, then certainly on a very recent one. But I can't quite, for the life of me, recall exactly what it sounds like. So it'll be new to me again, I suppose. This is Keys to Imagination with Tetris in the Air. Yeah, that's right. This was the kind of Phil Collins-y thingy. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Keys to Imagination, Tetris in the Air. For Maltus, thank you very much, Maltus, for requesting that. And yes, it is incredibly Phil Collinsy. Also, in other musically inclined information here, Vegan64 mentioned to our dear listeners that you guys should check out Risky Ride from Outrun 2. And I'm hoping, against hope, that you really are referring to Outrun 2 and not Outrunners, which is a kind of a... It's weird because I guess it was the actual successor. Like, Sega made Outrunners, and it is a terrible, terrible game, in my opinion. Maybe the arcade version is okay, or that is to say, if you play it with a steering wheel. I've only... and I'll have to admit it here, tried it in an emulated fashion, and it is a nightmare compared to the original. Like, it's terrible. Like, it controls so poorly, plays so terribly, whereas the much, much, much later follow-up in around, I think that came out 2003, which is just called Outrun 2, is a tremendous game. In fact, I bought it for the PC back in the day, and I remember being so stunned at how the game kind of came through quality assurance and working the way it did. Like, multiplayer was completely busted. You would, like, it was built in such a way that if you played against someone online, whoever was in front would basically drive into I need to explain a bit more. So most of you listening hopefully know that Outrun is basically made up of these large set pieces of stages that you drive through, and at the end of each stage you can either turn left or turn right, and then you get another set piece stage. So pretend that you're driving maybe in the jungle, and then at the end of the jungle there's like, oh well, you can now go left or right, and then left is the desert and right is the swamp or whatever. And this is technically very clever because it not only this turning left or right serves as an interstitial piece, it also means that the engine can pre-buffer and preload whatever level you choose. So this little interstitial selection is usually just a little lengthy, so the machinery has time to load the level and do lots of other stuff. But in the PC version of Outrun 2, if you played online, most of the time what would happen was you got to that interstitial, you picked one, or were forced to pick the one the person in front of you had picked, and then the next level just wouldn't load. So you just drive into empty geometry, which is completely borked. Yeah, it's terrible. And also, in addition to Vegan64 recommending Risky Ride, I would also highly recommend the revamped, modernized versions of Magical Sound Shower and Splash Wave and Passing Breeze. Even the kind of upbeat, club housey versions are pretty awesome in my opinion. A few more people are joining us in the chat. You can hear some cops outside, I suppose, if this microphone is picking it up. Ziona is joining us. Hello, Ziona. And now I chatted a lot about Outrun instead of what I was going on about. So let's take another song here. Jeez, this is loud outside. Sorry, folks. Windows open so I don't get fried in here. Let's see. I had a song lined up for the next person. Kitten. Yes, that's right, Kitten. You wanted some Fist 2, the Cavern version, and I honestly don't know which remix has Cavern in it, so this time I've just picked the most highly rated one, which is Dr. Future with Fist 2 The Legend Continues. And since I didn't have this in my repertoire, it stands to reason that I haven't heard it. So let us collectively give it a listen. This is Dr. Future with Fist 2 The Legend Continues.
ရာဟာပြည်သူကပေးတဲ့နေရာသူတို့ရထားပရိသတ်ကပေးတဲ့စင်သူတို့လက်ခံပြီးနေကြတာသူတို့နေရာဖန်နေရအောင်ဟုတ်ခင်ဗျားတို့မင်းကလူပြင်နဲ့ပတ်သက်လို့ဒီအဆင့်မှာရှိရတော့
Dr. Future with Fist 2, the legend continues. Now, before I get sidetracked, let me get back onto the topic. I talked about expanding the show and how exposure is a big part and how I've been working on the website. And yes, as I said, two pieces of the whole. There is in this case, the show or the instrument itself, and exposure of said show and and tool. And my very, very limited experience in this, that it's often the exposure part that is the most misunderstood amongst people building or making something. And my view, I'll come clean and say it's partially informed by Kickstarters and other generally informal conversations about the topic. And the reason Kickstarters are such an awesome insight into this is because it's a forum for creative enthusiasts who want attention. They're seeking an audience, and they have a platform that they can share their hopes and dreams and projects on, and it leads to a great many examples on how some people, not everyone, thinks that all they need is the concept or idea or even sometimes a fully developed prototype and they're good. Like some people think, well, all I need to do is to mention this in some sort of public forum and it's good enough. And I'll say this, yes, if your idea is, I don't know, turning lead to gold or some other, the thing is I cannot even come up with an idea that's come out of the blue and been such a unique thing that it just on its own sold itself. Heck, even, like I think one of the examples that comes to mind to me is something like Guitar Hero. Guitar Hero was a game that could have been made years prior to it coming into existence. This is someone who had a brilliant idea of how to combine plastic instruments with gameplay that is in some ways so incredibly simple and intuitive, and in some other ways just generally kind of mind-bogglingly stupid. And yet, even this idea, for those of you who don't know, they had to install these kind of booths around in Walmart and many other places to push this on people. Had they simply stocked the shelves with Guitar Hero and no one had known what it was or how it worked, that product would not have sold. Like, they had to push very hard to get it into people's hands. And finally, when it was out there and enough people owned a version of it, a copy, and could show it to their friends and be like, hey, buddy, check this out. See how fun this is. Then it got the ball rolling, and we all know that basically, or, well, if you don't know, here's the story. It basically led to, I think, one of the recent biggest highs of a new intellectual property. Like, they were churning out games in the Guitar Hero and Rock Band franchise annually because they were just selling so well. And of course, the market became completely oversaturated at some point, and eventually interest died out, and that was that. But they wrenched it hard and good to squeeze every last drop of money out of it. And this is a great idea, if you ask me. Like, this was a fantastic game idea that someone had come up with that didn't previously really exist. just such a good example of the fact that you still need to push so hard to get people to take notice and also to pay attention. On the other hand, if I mention some of the projects I've seen on Kickstarter where I just don't even know where to begin. One of my favorites was seeing someone who had a project, a budding photographer who wanted to take a single picture of every maid cafe in Japan. And again, on principle, as far as art crafts things go, sure, why not? You know, that's something I'm sure people are interested in. If you're willing to make the effort to try and document all the maid cafes there are in Japan, go for it. Then I took a kind of a look at, well, what had this person done in terms of preparing for the trip? You know, what pre-planning was available? Was there like maybe a structured travel plan of like how you're gonna hit all the cafes? No, not really. Just like kind of a rough estimate of how many maid cafes there are and how long this person expected to be in Japan trying to like get to all of them. And if I recall correctly, it was something like, I think there are close to 500 and not 600 maid cafes in all of Japan. And the person was said, I think it was a woman. She said something like, I'll take 2 weeks off to do this. And if I don't get them all the first time, I swear I'll come back again. And the person was seeking, I think, a couple of thousand. It was basically like, you know, pay my entire trip, but not for, you know, I won't take any salary, but just pay the trip and then I'll do this. You want people to pay you money to do that, and you can't even spend a single day just to figure out the travel plan. You don't need. You can tell how this. I'll leave this lady be. Unfortunately, I don't have a link, and I wouldn't even share it if I had it, because I don't want to, you know, climb up her ass and just be on her case, because there are lots of people like this. But it's just, if you cannot just show a modicum of professionalism, like, you know, at least whoever's giving you money, show them the utmost professionalism and planning as much of it as possible in advance. Why should anyone trust you with a dime? Like, it is. I don't even know what people are thinking. So I guess this is a bad example, because it isn't an example of a great idea that just needed exposure. It's an example of an okay idea with absolutely terrible execution behind it, but yet still this misguided idea that, hey, if I just share it with others, done. Like, I don't need to do anything. So anyway, the short clarification is you need exposure. And of course, the better your idea, the quicker you'll get to this critical mass. And the worse it is, and the longer it takes. But the point is, none of the ideas, even the very best ones, don't get there for free. It's hard work. And thus, it is unfortunately what I would call common sense that propels me to keep up with the website as well, and a lot of other things that surround the show, but don't really pay off dividends in you guys listening in. So I guess all I can say is, unfortunately, that's the way it is. So yeah, you gain very little from that, sorry to say, and I guess I won't apologize, because there isn't nothing to apologize for there. But I wish I could do more. But it is what it is. Anyway, let's move on. Let's take another song, and then we'll chat about this next topic a bit. So, local hoster, you wanted some Dax Commando 2013, the dubstep rework version, and I guess Dax made another version of it, but you'll get the rework because that's what you requested. Take it away, Dax. I actually expected that to go on just a little bit longer, and it's just like, nope, cut off, done, goodbye. Anyway, that was Dax Commando 2013, the dubstep rework, requested by local hoster. So thank you very much for requesting that. Much appreciated. And much appreciated everyone else. I believe, didn't I mention Kitten requesting the last song? If in case I forgot, thank you, Kitten. And thanks to everyone who does take the time to request things. So, moving right along, back to the topic at hand I was talking about here. So when I was thinking about this balance between exposure and building whatever it is you're building, it reminded me a bit about why a lot of people are willing to risk a lot to shortcut this part of the process. And some of the shortcuts that I'm going to mention make sense to me, like investing your savings in yourself so you can maybe work 1 year full time on a project and then launch it, rather than, for example, me who, I'm the example of I scrape together time wherever I can find it and see how it goes. And then there are people who, also, I guess, throw a year's worth of money at something to go to LA and take acting classes and try to make it there. And they're, both of these are the same exact shortcut, to be honest, but one feels far more worthwhile than the other. And the brief answer for me, at least, is I think I've read somewhere before, I'm not the clever person who came up with this, but it said something like success is a combination of passion, perseverance, and luck. And both of the approaches I mentioned, working on a project or, trying to become a budding actor, can be equally fruitful with the same passion and perseverance, but luck is where they can't work as well with an equal amount, unfortunately. And the reason I would say that is because without you even telling me what it is you're working on privately for about a year, it's safe to say, at least to me, that you're going to be going for something more unique than becoming an actor. Whereas on the other hand, if you're acting, you're one of several billion, and yes, only a fraction of those will vie for acting, but it's a big enough fraction that it's so much harder to break through. So my completely biased and unobjective and almost random opinion is that I'd imagine you have 10 to 20 times as much chance of making it as a successful YouTuber, despite the fact that this is a much more saturated market than ever. And you might ask, why do I think this? Well, let me sidestep a little bit and note on, just some things that I've noticed that I think pretty big YouTubers are doing completely wrong. And if you have a year, you're probably going to need more than that. Let's say several years to throw after such a project, and you're doing none of this nonsense that they are, man, you can clean up, or at least you can make a living, I would say. And let's get into what that is, what I believe these sins to be. But first, let's play another request. Woopag, you wanted some Delta with Spanish guitar. And the only Delta version I found that has some Spanish guitar in it is the the version by Novielo Pipo. So I've dug that one up because I presume that's the one you want, and I've picked the final version of it. So here you go, Woopag, some Delta. no, wait, not Ni, Novelo Pipo with Delta Spanish guitar final for Whoopag. A lovely little tune to kind of break it up in the middle. And in fact, we are at the middle of the show, so it's nice just to have something nice to, take it easy with. But that's enough taking it easy. We need to go back to hard-hitting facts and news and statements and opinions and rants and ramblings, and that's what I'm here for. And you are probably as well, because by now it can't be a surprise that I do a lot of yakety-yakking in between. So I was mentioning some classic cardinal sins that some bigger YouTubers do, and I'm not talking about the million subscriber base YouTubers. I'm talking about the ones who have maybe close to 100k, maybe 150. And in case you're wondering, I'm going to be specific. And I would not be as specific if I was talking to a bigger audience. Pretend this is you and me and about, I don't know, a couple hundred other people, if you count the people who download the show, in a private conversation at a big YouTube party where I lean in and I say, okay, do you know that DJ tutor guy on YouTube, Jonathan? He has a long-running series of DJ tutorials, and I love the guy. I love his enthusiasm. I love his laid-back style. But man, just some of the stuff he does is such no-nos. Such stuff you should just never do. And if you look him up and you search for DJ Tutor, you'll find a masterclass in some great laid-back, engaging style coupled with some very rough edges he really should have ironed out after years of doing this. Number one, he talks without saying anything, meaning a not insignificant amount of content in each of his videos is either repeating the same message and lesson many times over with a slight variation of words. And this is essentially wasting the viewer's time, if you ask me. And number two, and this is, I don't know if this is worse, because they're both bad in my opinion, his point / lesson, sometimes, possibly even often, comes through about 50% into the video. So what I mean is, the title of the video might be something like how to mix jazz with pop, and then he'll talk for 3, 7, sometimes even 10 minutes before he actually gets down to how to mix in jazz with pop. So he'll make like 12-minute videos where the actual part of it you care about is 10 minutes in. And this is the thing. Like, this is enough. People are incredibly critical of what they watch, at least when they're first getting into it. So if you have years of effort and you see someone, messing these very simple things up, man, you can basically eat their entire audience, if you ask me. It'll take time, don't get me wrong. This isn't an overnight kind of thing. Like, you'd have to work at it. But, it's wide open, and it's just surprising to me that some of these basic things don't go over well. Anyway, let's have another request, and this time, Paperboy is on the menu, and it was Vegan64, who said any upbeat version, and also suggested a fun link to some Paperboy stuff, and I'm going to play the Dead Guys version, because last time it was the C64 Mafia. Here you go, Vegan64.
It's a trip. It's got a funky beat.
Sorry, I just have to grunt after that. I really do like this version of of Paperboy with the dead guys. It's a fantastic version, if you ask me. So much appreciated, Vegan64, for technically somewhat indirectly requesting that. Moving right along, let's see, did I have something else? Oops. Well, see, now I've gone and done it. I think I've accidentally moved. Yes, I have. 2 seconds, everyone. Because I have now accidentally clicked on something I shouldn't have clicked on, and now the visuals have gone out the window. This was exactly what I was kind of worried that I might do. There we go. Back again. Fixed. Amazing how that could fortunately ended up working. But see, that's the thing. When this thing is held together with a piece of string and duct tape, that sort of stuff will just happen, unfortunately. So let's gloss over my lack of professionalism and talk about something else. Everyone's going solo, and what I mean by that is I'm an on-again, off-again watcher of Giant Bomb. It's probably where I get 60 to 70% of video game news. Otherwise, I sometimes check out Kotaku as well. And their company, Giant Bomb, used to have an employee by the name of Patrick Klepek, along with Austin Walker. And both of these jumped ship, essentially. And it's not totally surprising, because they were eventually given their chance to start their own shindig together at Vice called Waypoint. And in between, though, Patrick Klepek was briefly at Kotaku. So basically, he exited Giant Bomb and went to Kotaku. Austin Walker came in for, I think, about a year, and then both of them were recruited by Vice to do their own thing there. But what's more surprising to me is that GameSpot, which is kind of an odd, bizarro world Giant Bomb in some ways, because that's where some of the crew comes from. Their talent, Mary Kish and Danny O'Dwyer, have jumped shipped as well, even though Mary Kish apparently went straight to Twitch. Danny O'Dwyer started his own show, and now Drew Scanlon, a 8-year employee at Giant Bomb, has also just decided to quit and go it their own way. And it's so weird, because I'm pretty convinced that the reason these people are going solo is because they have personally now amassed enough of a following on their respective platforms that they can now branch off and do their own thing. And it makes me kind of wonder if at some point in the future, these companies that start hiring new on-air or on-screen talent simply start putting clauses in there and say, look, you cannot, do your own kind of competing video game broadcasting business or do any sort of video game related video stuff on your own, because we don't want to hire and pay you to build your audience through our platform and then split off and do your own thing when it's no longer profitable. But on the other hand, I can't really see how you'd make any sort of litigation that would keep that from happening, because hey, guess what? It's a free market. I just thought it was really interesting to see how a lot of singular talent is jumping off some of these bigger game company, news game companies, and doing their own thing, which I think was kind of interesting. Anyway, that's enough of that. Larson, he says something to bring back. He wants music, and I'll be happy to oblige. He wants something to bring back old memories, anything Star Paws woo. So I've dug up the Weltraum Amy version. Veldraum Amy with Star Paws Virtue 2, Larsson. So hopefully that was exactly what you wanted. And Local Hoster writes, in regards to the topic I just spoke about, saying that it may be litigation worthy, not, but, or maybe not, I'm not sure. He writes, maybe litigation worthy, not. But platforms, YouTube, Twitch, might start working with media companies to make life harder for this kind of approach. Yeah, and it's, I mean, in some ways, it's not really different from how it's been for kind of the larger aspect of television. So say you were a late night host in the US, like there was no reason why you couldn't just kind of jump ship to another one of the other late night gigs if they offered you a better deal. And there is some good evidence of that. In fact, I recall reading up, there was a apparently Jay Leno at some point left his spot on a very well-known late night show and kind of bowed out. There's this kind of unspoken rulery, and he bowed out and let Conan O'Brien take over for kind of the best spot. And I think it lasted for about half a year or a year, and the ratings just weren't anywhere near as good as Jay Leno. But it was more or less an unwritten rule that, hey, once you had, you know, I think they'd conversed on the matter privately, and it's kind of between them, and understood that, look, he's taking over and that's that. And then it ended up being that the network pleaded and begged for Jay Leno to come back, and they basically just kind of ousted Conan O'Brien, who, not surprisingly, did not take too well to that. So yeah, what I'm getting at is this isn't really anything new. The only new thing about it is that now a lot of maybe lesser known, and certainly in no way as, you know, widely known people can suddenly branch off and have their own platform and do things, because all this social media stuff allows you to follow them more closely. So anyone who gets any sort of exposure has an incentive to try and get their audience onto their Twitter or Twitch or something else. And I wonder if companies in the future might say something like, look, the accounts that you use for people to follow you when it's associated with our company are these company Twitter accounts and stuff like that. And it kind of goes both ways, because on one hand, I can see why a company might want to do that, so they certainly lock you down a bit more and are like, well, look, if you want to start your own thing, you're going back to square one. You can't feed off of us and then eventually just split. But on the other hand, that also, of course, means that anyone who has a work-based Twitter won't ever be using it outside of work. So it makes it less personable. So a lot of people want to connect with the personalities that they see, and that wouldn't really happen on the same level if it was a work only Twitter account. So yeah, I think it's an interesting concept. And if you want to interact socially with me, well, I do have Twitter as well, but I'm sure you can find that if you are so inclined. People can also join the Slay Radio chat channel. And someone who is in the Slay Radio chat channel is Ziona. And Ziona wants a little bit of Kronblom, or Kronberg, as this individual calls himself, with Heartland, the Transiano remix, another song that I didn't have in my repertoire. So take it away, Kronblom with Heartland, Transiano remix. Crumblom with Heartland Transiano remix for Ziona. Lovely tune. That one I've heard a ton before, but just haven't really kept up with the library. Man, I probably said this before, but I am exceedingly happy that at least PlanMixPlay has gotten to the point where it can properly load songs in as I'm doing the show, because I find people are requesting, more often than not, I always thought that my library was complete and I had every song, and I even considered, should I maybe pre-cache, should I just grow the collection as RKO grows, because I do know you can get all the latest releases in this kind of complete pack as time progresses. But then, on the other hand, I also thought, look, I just probably don't ever have the space to do that, which is annoying. And Wakani apparently is out of there. He says he has to go start the fire, going to start to have a good old South African braai. Not sure what that is, but yeah, and mentions you might be back later. So you're more than welcome. Thanks for listening in. And for those of you who are on the podcast, I suppose I should also once again remind you that there is a visual version of the show as well that you can tune into. And let me just copy that link into the chat as well one more time. There we go. Bam. Moving along, I have another request to play, and this time it was, let's see here, Sis64738, who says, good morning, please play this one, and this one refers to JT in Space, the Two Legs remix. Says, greetings to Dax, Morty, XX Dusty, XX, Elman, Lala, Makke, and everyone who supports the C64 and Amiga. And actually, you mentioning of the Amiga, I think I mentioned this before, that I totally would also like to branch out and do an Amiga show as well. As usual, time is of the essence, so I don't know. Maybe at some point I might be able to squeeze a secondary show into the week, but definitely not more than that. And in case I did, I'd probably be rotating things around and saying, like, look, every second week it's this type of show, or every second and every even week it's this, and every odd week it's this. Just because there's not enough time to do all of it. Right. So, and the request was, by the way, by Metal. And I don't believe I've heard this one before, but it has a giant red smiley, and giant red smileys means good things. So for Sis64738, this is Metal with JT in Space, Two Legs remix.
I'm putting you in command of the spaceship. A bunch of notes from an electronic hunk of metal.
I do like their quote at the end. It's a bunch of notes from a hunk of electronic metal. Metal with JT in Space, the Two Legs remix, requested by Sus64738, who once again gives shoutouts to Dax, Morty, XX, Dusty XX, Elman, Lala, Makke, and everyone who supports the C64 and Amiga. Indeed, the one greeting that sticks out to me mostly is probably Makke. I mean, it doesn't really matter whether or not these people are active. I don't know whether or not the others are, but I'm pretty sure Makke hasn't been around in ages. He, got life. He had a family, kids, and all that, and then suddenly you're very short on time and can no longer partake in everything you used to partake in. And look, that's just life. Speaking of other things that I partake in, my script is at an end, so now it's a free flow session here, and one thing I did want to chat about was what I've been playing recently, which is Rock of Ages. This is a game from Ace Team. Ace Team is known for making some kind of weird, what was it? Someone mentioned this triple I instead of triple A games, so triple I is kind of like upper echelon of indie games, and I would say their games tend to be generally fairly high quality, but still an indie budget. I highly recommend that you check out the titles that they've done, just so I don't misquote any of them. Let me just look it up, because I own, in fact, quite a few of them. Not all of their games, but the reason is because they have, their pedigree is just so weird. And I'll explain to you in a bit. So, right, they made Xenoclash, Rock of Ages, Xenoclash 2, Abyss Odyssey, The Deadly Tower of Monsters, and soon Rock of Ages 2, Bigger and Bolder, which is a fantastic pun there. So Xenoclash is a first-person beat-em-up on the Valve engine, and it's not bad. Like, it's I would say they don't get as close to perfection as the game I talked about last time, which is Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay. That game, I would say, still has the best first-person beat 'em up that I've seen. But Xenoclash 1 wasn't a half-bad effort either. Rock of Ages is, to me, such an interesting concept. The idea is you alternate between a tower defense style game and rolling a rock around on the level that has these towers on it. So it's always a symmetrical map where where you and against an AI or another person, if you're playing multiplayer, basically puts down these towers that try to shoot or prevent this rock from rolling to the bottom of the hill. And at the bottom of the hill is a castle which contains the enemy leader that you have to squish under this giant boulder. And it's such a weird mishmash of game modes. It's almost like if anyone listening has played Natural Selection, which is a mishmash of first-person shooting and real-time strategy. And I love when people do these weird, quirky things. I'll talk a little bit more about Rock of Ages in a bit. There is a bit of a sad thing about it, because some of the game mechanics don't work out, which is such a shame. But in the meantime, I thought I'd play a song I want to hear, which is Zeitgeist with We Still Remember You. Zeitgeist with We Still Remember You, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a collaborative effort between Slagon and Danko and maybe someone else, but I think it's Danko and Slagon primarily. Maybe someone in the chat can correct me if I've got that wrong. Getting back to Ace Team, yes, their games are so quirky, and as Vegan64 points out, they're very often on Slay Radio. Yeah, that's a fantastic game. Like I said, you basically roll a rock down a hill trying to avoid obstacles and building towers in the way of the rock of the enemy. And this is so they're trying to kind of mishmash together two very unique styles of play, which I find fantastic. But unfortunately, it also means that I'd say they don't work super well. So when you reach the end of the level with your boulder, you hit a gate and you're supposed to smash through it. And basically every hit you do on the gate destroys your rock, and you gotta start all over again in a bit. And I'd say 90% of the time, you will need exactly 3 boulders to get through the gate, always. And it's the same for the enemy. On occasion, as I played the game a bit more, I was able to build a collection of towers that would basically what's the right word here? Corner the AI completely. And I think what Ace Team found out, that making a proper AI control this rolling ball down a hill and around towers that you dynamically place is not an easy task at all. In fact, I imagine they found out that it was much harder than they thought it would be. And their solution to this, unfortunately, was to make it kind of not super liberal where you can place towers. Like, you only have a very specific set of places where you can put things. So there are only a few places where you get to wall off a certain section of the level, basically creating a wall they have to blast through. And it's also clear that this is the part of the game the AI has the most trouble dealing with. Like, occasionally you will completely deadlock the enemy boulder, and it won't really, like, it'll eventually get through, but it'll get through after being shot at so much that it doesn't really matter. And there's so much of it I like. I like that the boulder gets smaller and smaller the more damaged it gets, but in turn also becomes more nimble to move. I like that there's a variety of towers, but it's just controlling the boulder is a lot of fun, and trying to dodge the enemy's towers is also a lot of fun. Trying to deadlock the enemy's boulders is also fun, but it's such a rushed pace, and it's kind of hard to describe. It's pretty obvious, to me at least, that the developers eventually ran out of time and had to make a number of concessions in the game design just to make it fun at all. So I wouldn't say it's the tightest of designs. In fact, it has a lot of flaws in terms of game design. But this is also what happens when you try to throw together such weird ideas that haven't been tested as much. Whereas I'd say natural selection, that's way more dependent on the players. If you get a good team together, a good squad leader who does really good at the real-time strategy stuff, that game is, I would say, mechanically very sound. It works really, really well. Rock of Ages, maybe not so much. But it is such a unique thing, and has such unique gameplay that I would highly recommend it. Anyway, I've run out of the first unique series of requests, so I'm going to do a few repeats here. LP Chip, he wanted some last V8 and told me that 10Q is a way of saying thank you. Well, you're welcome, LP Chip. Oh, and in case it wasn't obvious, this is the Mind in a Box version of last V8. Ah, the crispiness of that voice. So, that was for you, LP Chip, I believe, the Mind in a Box version of the last V8. Isn't it LP Chip? Yes. It says 10Q again. I'll keep saying 10Q instead of 10Q. 10Q. And much appreciate the very kind comments from localhost who says the visuals are holding up. Scrolls, types, works. Yeah, it does. It's still pretty boring. I'm not surprised that there are only 3 people watching the live stream because, you know, these visuals don't really do that much for the show here and now. But, you know, working on it one step at a time. I just hope I can iron out this last bug because it's an annoying one. Like, it's one deep in some of the systems that control the various UI elements that I have, and until I get that sorted, I can't really move much forward because I do need to make that part of the program work much better. And that's the unfortunate thing. I simply don't have the time to, I would say, properly diagnose and QA the software. I'm hoping to kind of build enough of an interest in the software so a small group of people might be willing to test it as I release it regularly and have a bit of help there. But for that to work out, I think I also need to get the software much closer to something that someone would want to use on any sort of regular basis, and that currently just isn't the case. It's pretty cool to broadcast with. Again, I'm very psyched about this visual stuff working out well, but much more eager about where we can take it from here. And for that to work, I just need to hammer out a few more details. Moving along. I don't know, maybe I haven't mentioned, but I should mention that Rock of Ages 2 is also on the way, and that has me really excited. And that's mostly because, you know, Rock of Ages 1, I just hope that number 2 is basically a much, much more polished version of number 1, and hopefully they've had time to make the AI much better, because given that it is such a quirky game, it doesn't have the biggest audience, so it would surprise me if there was a lot of people playing it online these days. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to seeing number 2, which I believe is going to be shipped at some point this year, which is what they're working on next. But I'm really happy to see that they didn't just drop the ball on it. Anyway, another request coming up. Maltus, you said you wanted a Xiona's deflector, and I've lined that up because, well, why not? Let's take a listen together. Ziona with Deflector, requested by Maltus. So thank you, Maltus, for requesting that. And also, another request I should note, because, kind of because it's easy to take care of because I can't play it, is Kitten said, just to twist things up, please play something Ghostbusters. Well, technically Kitten writes Ghost Booters, but I'm guessing you just mean a version of Ghostbusters. And there is a rendition of Ghostbusters on the C64. Excuse me while I sneeze. Oh, my apologies. There is a rendition of it, but I think it's not far from the Axel Foley. Well, maybe not as bad as Axel Foley, but I don't think I want to foist that upon you, dear listener/viewer. So I'm sorry, Kitten. I'm going to take a rain check on that one. Instead, I've lined up Funkadelia with Patrulia Lunar, the Moon Patrol Funkadelia Mexico, it says? Huh. Anyway, I remember this as being an awesome tune, and since we're getting close to the end of the show, not too many requests, I thought, let's take this song. It's good. Give it a listen. Funkadelia, Patrular Lunar. Love that little hacky bit at the end there. Yes, very intentional putting that in. And Malta says this song is good. Never heard of it before. Also, it might interest you to know, Maltus, that there is a cappella version that would actually be instrumental version of it. One without the lyrics. Maybe there's a cappella version as well. And Wulkani joins us once again, hopefully having done the South African braai fire, whatever. You go, well, no, I was just about to say they usually go do pyromaniac things, but I would not advise that. Don't try this at home. That's not good. Which reminds me of a colleague of mine who has a pretty funny t-shirt that said, I tried it at home, and then a guy who's basically on fire and electrocuted and some other stuff. Funny business. Anyway, I'm afraid this is the end of the show. We have reached our conclusion here. I went a little bit over time last time, and I'm not really going to finish that much earlier because the wind down tune I've picked is pretty lengthy. It is Andy Gilmore with the L-Man Robocop title. But I will be wrapping up soon, and Wakani tunes me in and says Bry is a barbecue. Oh, awesome. Have fun with that. Wish I was there. I could do with some barbecuing stuff. In fact, I'm feeling a bit peckish. I'll probably have just a bite to eat before I doze off. Anyway, I've had a blast. I hope you have had one too. I'm pretty happy that even this duct tape version of PlanMixPlay is piping out the visuals that I want. So that's pretty awesome. Hopefully I can make them more appealing, so I can convert a few more of you to watch as well as listen in. But I do see there's been a slight uptick from 3 to 4 watchers. There will be a number of shows coming up. I'm pretty sure Boz has his usual Wednesday slot. I actually don't think there's anything else announced currently. But hey, look, Boz usually does his stuff. Gertie Gert, I'm sure Crax Ultima Ziona as well has started doing shows a bit more regularly, so hopefully she will be doing a show as well. I will be back next Sunday at the usual time, and hopefully with something new to do and show. But I make no promises because, as I said during the show, it is a deeper issue this time, and it wouldn't surprise me if it took a couple of hours to debug the matter. The one good thing is that it is reproducible, which is the key to any easy debugging. I just do this one thing, and the program PlanMixPlay crashes horribly. So that's good, but it still crashes in a place where I'm not sure exactly what leads up to the problem that I'm having. But that is tedious and boring, and for another day. So I will instead say good night, good afternoon, or even good morning to you, depending on where you are. I've been Gazoo. This has been PMP versus Futures. I've had an awesome time. I hope you have too. Feel free to tune again next week and catch some of the other shows on Slay Radio. I will let Andy Gilmore and L-Man take you out with Robocop. Have a good day, everyone.